They really bring excitement. Yes, good. So, good evening to everyone. Let me say good night to our listeners. Welcome to Real Talk today, Monday, the 20th of April, 2026. And as usual, Real Talk takes you to the very issues, the core of our issues we face on a day-to-day basis in Dominica. And most likely you can relate some of those issues as well that people experience in the Caribbean. But tonight with me, we've got a guest, and this guest is, none other than Mr. David Shagel. Shagel, I don't know if I pronounce it well. He will correct that if he's not
That'll
so.
work. That works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good, very good. And then we have with us our political leader, Dr. Thomson Fontaine. Tonight, we are going to, based on our agenda here tonight, we are going to look at some of the perspectives or the look at the perspective with respect to what is actually happening at Deux Branches, and you can connect this to Kwapo Hall, and we have a person who actually live within the vicinity and can tell best what is happening. So we'll hear from this, and as usual, we'll entertain calls and suggestions, and we will try to answer questions as much as possible replicable and make your suggestions, but make it with taste. And we all are going to have what you call a harmonious program there tonight. We are going to make sure that we bring the news, not just to you, but you yourself, you are participating and having your views. So, Doc, as usual, you must be able to tell us what has been happening because it's another week again, and you must have good news for the people of Dominica to let them know what is happening you, and the political United Workers' Party. Special
Okay.
welcome to you.
Yes, indeed. A very good night to everyone. It is certainly good to be back on Real Talk, and a special good night, of course, to our guest, Mr. David, whom you'll be hearing from in just a little bit. So we are really thankful um, for all of you, and happy that we can be doing this. I'm not sure why. I'm just trying to see this. Are you able to see me clearly?
Oh yes, certainly. Bright and
Yes.
shining.
Okay, great. All right. So I just want to say that we have been doing quite well in the past few days, and let me just say a very special good night as well to the residents of the Mau constituency, and in particular individuals from the Warner area, where we were able to spend some time recently in Warner, and we had a very good engagement last Thursday. It
Wow.
rained quite a bit, but we were able to do an engagement there with our people, and it really was a great time for all of us there, and encouraging persons to go out there, do the confirmation process, to get involved. Please don't be left behind, but do what is necessary, to ensure that at the end of the day they're able to vote and participate in our democratic process. So that has been going on very well, and we just want to say that we'll be in another community in next week. We'll let you know exactly where we will be, but all of that is part of an effort to reach out to the Dominican public with a message of hope, with a message of positivity, with regards to our 10 pillars and how more we can do. So, to all the people that we've met and we've interacted with, and those of you who've, because of our meetings, are now going on to get confirmed, we certainly encourage you to do so. And talking about confirmation, the Electoral Commission or Electoral Office, they will be in the National Stadium tomorrow, and they will be taking care of confirmations and registrations for persons who are from the Monjan Riviera Civic Grand Fork constituency, but who normally reside in the Roseau area. So you don't have to go all the way to Grand Fork, to Monjan, or to Riviera Civic to confirm. You can actually do that tomorrow at ease in the National Stadium, and it'll be there from 9:30 until 5 tomorrow. So if you're around town, make an opportunity on your lunch break or at some point, find your way down there. If you live in Salisbury or St. Joseph and you continue to vote in those areas that I mentioned in the Mont John River Civic Grand Fork area, please make every effort to go there and to be counted as part of that confirmation process.
Well, yes, Doc, thanks again. By all accounts, it appears that being on the ground is what, attracts the people. That is what bring them, together and to understand that kind of understanding of, information sharing between constituents and political soon to come policymakers. So I think that's an interesting area. Yes, the Electoral Commission, I don't hear much of advertising. I don't know how much advertising was done, but I wish the operation a success because we need to have Dominicans confirmed. So let me just thank you for the work that you have been doing, you and your team, you and the United Workers Party. We have been really doing it and strongly advocating to Dominicans that they need to get confirmed because that's the only way they can have a say in the electoral process. Well, let me just say again tonight, we are going to shift gears very quickly because we have a guest with us, and I'm thinking that this is his night. We are going to give him much of the time that is required. As we said earlier, we announced that we have a guest in Mr. David Shagel, and I can say too, is a patriotic brother. He's a farmer, a father, and I can say, he's an environmental defender. He lives in Crapo Hall, and obviously, as you are aware, that the mining in Deux Branches is not far from Crapo Hall. So at this point in time, I will just let David just lead us into what do you think about the mining operations as it relates to Deux Branches and probably Crapo Hall, and just give us a sort of geographical connection between these two areas because it seems to me that they are not far away from each other. Welcome, Mr. Brother David.
Right, good night, Soso. Um, well, so Cropper Hall is part of the Hutton Garden Estate, and above Cropper Hall, and what is the upper part of Cropper Hall and the lower part of St. Mary River, is where they began this quarry mine thing, and it's going to go all the way across from there to Deux Branches eventually. At this point, they're still working 7 days a week, from 7 in the morning into the night, excavating below Main Ridge and above Cropper Hall, moving across towards Deux Branches. This began in 2023. They began putting a highway through my road for the trucks and destroying the river to make their way up for the quarry or mine. Somewhere around May of 2023, April, May, in this time period. By July, they had already polluted Cropper Hall River to the point where it no longer could be drunk from. And, as I've put up onto the YouTube drone videos to show the progression of this, it's basically a total ecocide. Like homicide, the killing of a man, ecocide, the killing of an ecology. Now, people became aware of this when it started to burst out by Deux Branches, Deux Branches being where they want to put a second crusher. But they are continually operating a crusher in Cropper Hall for years now. So I think it's important to make a little distinction between what is the political narrative, which has nothing to do with the truth, and what are the actual works on the ground, which is impacting the environment. So, for example, just as an example, because there's been so many lies over the last few years, when people started, when Nacio stood up in Deux Branches and with Helen and IP, and I joined him, and we all kind of united around standing for the protection of the environment. One of the first narratives that our Prime Minister put out was to say that they were doing this because they were closing down Cropper Hall because the rock types or whatever was not up to whatever their quality or need was. And simultaneously, as this narrative was being given to our people, they were doubling up the amount of people working in Cropper Hall. So not only were they not shutting it down, they were expanding. They doubled the size of their workers' quarters, brought in more workers. And as we were able to stop the beginning of the assembling of the rock crusher in Deux Branches, they just ran twice as many trucks in Cropper Hall. And it's important for us to understand that there is a narrative and then there is the reality, and they are very far apart, right? The narrative is they're collecting tariff to develop us with an airport. The reality is that tarish is the throwaway byproduct when you're mining. So it's be the equivalent of if I had a grandfather that left me a cocoa field and I didn't know cocoa, and somebody came and said, I'll give you all the husks you want to make mulch. Because they were coming for the cocoa.
Exactly.
And they make their money from the cocoa.
That's right.
So I may find myself severely poor and not much I gonna make from the mulch. The Chinese have no intention of just developing some little project for us. Where they are mining is the same place that the Australians under Edison's time had found copper there. They're geologists, where previously other geologists, I believe it was in the 60s, also found copper there. And now this is the third entity that is now actively going after that resource. I've had my life turned upside down from this, but not from a personal level. I felt like saying to people, it's happening to me today, it's going to come to you tomorrow. So for 2.5 years, nobody was seeing the destruction going on inside. And when I would go on the radio or tell people about it, it wasn't in people's awareness. They didn't pick up on it. Now we're seeing what they're doing in Deux Branches. And finally, praise job, people are becoming awakened to a degree about the devastation that is coming. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, right. So let us take it at a step, and you talk about the narrative, and you talk about the actual operation. So it's what you can say one thing, but you do another thing. Sure. But one would argue that, let's say the precious metal, whatever it is, copper, and one would come to the conclusion that, yes, the country may get royalties from it, but one may not also think of the repercussion, because the benefit, what is the cost-benefit analysis there? Are you going to, is it going to be at the benefit of destroying the forest reserve or part of the forest reserve? Because how much more benefit there can be? Does the benefit of copper, if at all they succeed, be more than the actual degradation of the environment? So put us in that kind of
sure. Yes. Sure, but I want to open the aperture a little bit from that to first say who would have the control over that mineral is a fundamental issue.
That is correct.
That leads us towards sovereignty and about control over resources. I would make the comparison, that the reason why the Gulf states are all millionaires, why every citizen of Bahrain is wealthy, every citizen of Saudi Arabia, is because when they discovered oil, they made a corporation for everybody in the country to be a stockholder of. So every citizen is a shareholder in the natural resource for those countries.
Right.
So any extraction of oil profits the whole country. We have nothing like that. So first of all, if there is an entity that's coming to mine a mineral here, there is no structure for the people themselves to actually profit from it. Now, there may be certain entities that profit from it within our country that I don't know, and I can't speak to what I don't know. But without an infrastructural, how do we say this? Without having control over who would profit from the mineral, we could almost guarantee that it won't be us. Because that would be, it's like if you don't have a mechanism to hold somebody accountable, you can guarantee you won't be able to hold them accountable. It's the mechanism that is empowering for us as a people to be able to profit from whatever resource, whatever entity would want to take. In this case, it's quite clear that China has no interest in respecting our constitution or our laws, neither their puppet who they have in place. I would give the very factual example so that we don't have any confusion.
Yes.
That when me and Nacio were blocking the truck from going into the Chinese work site, there had already been a stop order since December at that point. And when the police are sent to then escort the Chinese truck to the site, it is using our police to help the Chinese go over our constitution and break the stop order.
Oh,
to achieve their goal. So if they can do that in the setup to this, how much you think we're going to profit from whatever they find? I would
that
also factually say that they took my land more than 3 years ago, and there's never been agreement up till today. I've never been paid for my land, nor has there ever been mitigation when they destroyed my river source, my water source. So that already is illegal. The ESIAs that we made public by going into planning and copying them do not even represent reality, in the sense that this Isaiah Benoit never interlocuted with me, the stakeholder that's actually inside of Hatton Garden, while claiming that he had done an ESIA, the S in ESIA being social, in other words, the stakeholder being affected. So there's been a continual disrespect for constitutional law, for statutory requirements, for the Land Acquisition Act, for SKZU, the environmental protection already ratified, right? Agreements that we are bound to. So the fact, personally, I'm not into politics. I'm into patriotism. So I'm not partisan at all, at all.
I know that. Yes, sure.
What I want is that a government follows the law. And I expect that if the government can hold me accountable if I break the law, then we as a people should expect that they also must follow the law.
Okay, so they're going to hold your thoughts there a while, because, and I wanted to start wrapping your mind around that, because I'm going to Dr. Fontaine in a while. I'm going to him directly, but I wanted to wrap your mind, so by the time I come back to you, you'll give a response to that. The
Sure.
current parliamentary representative, I know you say you're not in politics, but I want you to respond to that after. The current parliamentary representative, Mr. Anthony Charles, said that the people have agreed for their land to be used in the whole mining operation. In his statement, he said that. Now
It
we
is
are
a
hearing from
nonsense
you.
and a lie.
Yes, so wait a while, you'll respond to that,
Sure.
because now we are in that, so long your land have been used or been, if government going to do an arrangement, they must have what they call a proper acquisition process taking place. So you'll tell us about that.
We
But I
have
just want
laws.
to go to Dr. Fontaine, because
Sure.
he being, the leader of the United Workers' Party and soon to assume office to take over the reins of government. And we know that government is more responsible for what they call policy development. And Doc, I know that you have been advocating for preservation of the environment, and also your heart is for to preserve the nature island of the Caribbean. By no means we should call ourselves nature island, and we are in this state. So your perspective with respect to what is going on at Deux Branches, and being, heading now soon to government, and your government, you can assure the people that your government will actually ensure that the policy regarding preservation of the environment will stand, because a lot of people have been disgusted with what is going on. Your take on all what is going on, Doc?
Yes, so I will give a short take, and then I have a question that I would like to direct to David as well. You
Yes.
know, I've been opposed to what's going on at Deux Branches, because I see a an intrusion into the Central Forest Reserve of Dominica. I believe that this area should be maintained in its pristine form as part of our national park, as part of our Central Reserve. But more importantly, it is not in keeping with the nature isle aspect of this country. And I believe that we have other areas around Dominica that have been developed where you can mine this kind of rocks and so on. And if that is what it is, that should go towards the airport. So I've been set against this. I've made it very clear that I do not support the mining taking place in the Deux Branches area. I believe it has too many serious impacts, including on our waterways, on our river. This is a big catchment area. It has also very adversely impacted our Kalinago people. That's a major, major consideration. These original people of Dominica have been fundamentally impacted by what is going on in both Crapo Hall and in Deux Branches. And I'm like, at what cost development? It cannot be that you're going to justify a development project by the wanton destruction of your own environment. It simply does not work. I believe we can do differently and we can do better. But having said that, let me ask David though, because a number of persons that you talk to, they say, but what is wrong? It's just a mountain. Why should we be concerned about it? It's just a mountain, and we are actually doing it because this is development. And then we've heard from the government officials who have said that this is the only place in the country where you can get those rocks that can be used in developing an international airport. How do you respond to that from government?
Okay. I, to my mind, the expression "a straw man argument," right? This is a straw man argument. This idea that sovereignty, protection of creation, respect for ecosystem and watershed is somehow an impediment to development. This, in my mind, I'm nobody, but I have my thoughts on it. This is a straw man argument. It is made to distract from the actual thing at play. The way I understand reality, economics drives politics, not the other way around. And there is no free money. So we keep talking about China's helping us to develop, but we're never talking about what does China want out of this? China is not doing this out of some altruism and some great love of Dominica from the goodness of their heart. We could look at how they treat their own people and other countries they've colonized to explain to us that they are operating in their own self-interest. So the real argument, first of all, I'll get back to the specificity of your question, but the real argument is about, first of all, what does China want? Because they're never speaking about that. Our regime never speaks about that. They give us a false narrative about, look, the Chinese are coming like some angel out of love to develop us. And I want to add something about this crazy word development. This word is being misused almost as much as God, love, and justice. Okay? The only real development is human development. When a government provides for the education of its children, the health care of its people, and the infrastructure necessary for businesses to operate, people believe in themselves, are healthy, and can develop whatever else they need. The idea that some foreign entity, whether it be China, IMF, World Bank, Europe, America, anybody, is going to have more interest in our development than we have is nonsense. It is a straw man argument. I'm sorry to speak so long.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Because you have
Okay.
another question to answer with respect to what the
Right.
panel said.
Right. So to Mr. Anthony, or as I know him, Tony Charles.
Yeah, Tony Charles.
Okay. First of all, with all due respect to Mr. Charles, he should actually start to speak truth, because what he says is nonsense and lies. I would tell you as a matter of fact that I could put my hand in fire and assure the people listening that I went to Mr. Tony Charles after the Chinese showed up on my land. And I went to Mr. Tony Charles after the government began lying to me about they would pay me for the land and do an ESIA, which they had never done at that time, and asked him, begged him, implored, supplicated, whatever word you want, for him to help me to get the government to respect my land and the law to acquire the land. If it's for public good, do it through the legal process. Mr. Tony Charles was unable to do that. So Mr. Tony Charles very well knows that there never was an agreement to purchase my land. So when he makes a statement that Marigot people are all wanting the mine or okay with the mine, I don't see the list of landowners affected that he's showing to show that each person on that is accepting, right? I know that I live inside of Crapo Hall for 25 years. My children are born, raised there, big people now. And that there is no agreement with me for the acquisition of my land. So it doesn't matter if somebody on the other side of Marigot says, okay, they can take his land. That's ridiculous. When you have a project for the national good, if it's for the national good, don't you also have to follow the national law? Isn't that the good way of doing it? So Tony is just, he's singing for his supper, or he's talking for some other reason that I don't know. but he's certainly not speaking the truth, and he darn well knows it.
Because I mean, it is now contradicting what Mr. Charles has said, because we know under the law, with respect to, as you said, if it's for the public good, the government has a right to acquire land. We cannot stop that. Although in many
No
cases
problem.
people afford them, and we don't have no problem with that, because but you've been
Follow
a
the law.
stakeholder, you have been affected. If your land is then used in the whole operation, then it was only fair that you all sat down, come up with you would have had an estimate of what you have on your land and the cost, and they would have paid you. And then, so it means that even as the operation is going on, then you have stakeholders who are not satisfied, which means that there is what they call unfinished business before implementation could have been done.
But hold on, if I want to do a project, and I haven't paid off the people whose land I'm going to need for the project, and I don't even have an agreement with a date of when I'm going to pay them off, how could I begin the project legally?
That is correct. So that is a violation. I was coming to that. So that's a pure violation. So when Mr. Charles said the people have agreed, agreeing means that you have sat down in good faith with the government, you all came to an agreement, you agreed for a certain package of compensation.
I'd like Tony to show me the agreement that I haven't signed.
That is correct. So then,
or that I signed, because I haven't signed an agreement.
Well, so I'm telling you, that is misleading the people, and unfortunately, I'm happy that you were able to clear the air, because his statement is in audio form and is in written form, and it is so contradicting to what you're saying. And I don't know if you are just one of the many stakeholders who have been affected. But somebody saying there, let me read a comment, that you all need to first stop this narrative about Chinese in Dominica. These Chinese people have a contract in Dominica to build the airport, so they are not mining for anything to benefit them. Your reaction to that? And Dr. Fontaine will chime in as well.
Well, I don't think that's, first of all, I'm not going to say no, that's not true. I would like the person who asked that to answer, what do they think China wants from us? Why is China here? Is that out of the goodness of their heart? I mean, first of all, I have seen so much illegal things done by the Chinese in Crapo Hall. I have been run from my home for about 7-8 months when I had to rent elsewhere because they tore out the road. I couldn't even go home. I don't really understand why they have a problem with the truth. If China was here benevolently, like the Taiwanese, I remember when the Taiwanese were here, they would put on their rubber boots and come out on the farm with us and look eye to eye as man and deal as people. That is not the way the Chinese are doing this. And look, I would like to make a comparison. For many years, Nigeria wanted a deep sea port for their own development. China offered to finance that deep sea port to assist them, and they did what we know as, Dr. Felton must know this term, economic hitman, where they extended loans to Nigeria, which they knew Nigeria could not pay back and would have to renegotiate the terms of said loan, and they would have to give over control of the port. Today, in Nigeria, that port is completed and owned and run by the Chinese to the mass benefit of the Chinese, not Nigeria. There is no difference in what they are doing here with the so-called airport, okay, than what they did in Nigeria, because this is a pattern we see, right? I don't believe in political discourse. I believe in facts on the ground and applied policy. You gave out a policy. Did you follow the policy? There's laws. Did you follow the laws? That I can observe and know whether it's true or not.
Yes, indeed. And you know, unlike David, you know, I think what they call is trying to insinuate that somehow we're bashing the Chinese. I don't think that's what we're doing, because I believe ultimately the integrity and the safety and the preservation of Dominica is in the hands of the government of Dominica.
Can I ask Dr. Phelps a question? Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, sure. Yes, David, please go ahead.
Do you believe that the Chinese have any respect for our Constitution, much less our notion of human rights as citizens? Because that doesn't exist in China. So do you have the impression that they are now considering our human rights and our constitution like private land ownership, which doesn't exist in China?
Right,
Do
but
they consider that for us?
yeah, but the point I'm making is that ultimately those responsibilities of the government of Dominica, whatever the Chinese believe, they cannot, in other words, they should not be here imposing what they believe on us, because between them and us is the government, and the government is supposed to ensure that our laws are followed, because within our constitutions we do have the private whole land holding
Right.
act. We do
But they've
have those,
disregarded it. I mean, the proof
we
is in
do
the
have that.
pudding. But the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the actions that they have taken and continue to take.
Right, but
Right?
if they're taking those
I respect
actions, my argument is that they're taking those actions if they're allowed to by the government,
I
because
agree
the
to that.
government should be protecting the people based on the constitution that we have.
Agreed. But again, the facts on the ground is that our sovereignty has been hijacked by the Chinese. I mean, again, we keep running into a problem. I run into a problem. Let me speak for myself. I can't speak for anyone else, Lord knows. But I have a problem when we get to the point where the truth is not only an offense and it's not a sin, but it may be considered criminal to speak it. And that becomes a problem, because if we want to have real talk, if we want to have a real discussion about the real situation, then we must talk about colonialization and the one China policy, and how communist China does not have allies. It has countries that it has control and sway over, and it has influence in places where it can buy influence, but it has no allies the same way that Soviet Union did not have allies. It had countries that it controlled under the Iron Curtain, its version of one China, right? The Sovietic, okay? Or it had adversaries. Now, if we all are old enough to remember the Taiwanese being here, we're all old enough to remember the undiplomatic rejection of the Taiwanese and the undiplomatic throwing out of the Taiwanese, the rushed acceptance of China, and suddenly we are a member of the one China policy.
So
And everything
David,
that's happened after that is a result of this. We should, I mean, like, if I get arrested for the truth and the truth is illegal, then we're in more trouble than people really realize.
and this is real talk, because
David, also I wanted, sorry, so because I also wanted, because
Forgive me, but
in a sense I want us to kind of keep it very close to the
we're going back there too,
issue, because one of the things I wanted to highlight there, and that's why I'm very happy that we have David, because David actually lives in the vicinity, all right, where all of that mining activity is taking place. And I wanted David to kind of give the Dominican public a sense as to the amount, the extent, because we are thinking that's just a small area, probably like a couple 100 square feet of area that has been mined. But David, it's a lot more than that, right? It's literally a few acres. Can you give us a sense as to how much of the area is being mined?
The best way to give a sense would probably be the same video that I had sent you of the most recent drone video we did.
Right. So I played that last week. I probably should look for it to replay for.
Yes, because in a matter of 40 seconds or so, you advance it to the 40th second in that drone video, and you will see the expanse. It's something like 30 times the area of what you see in Deux Branches. And I don't know how much deeper.
Yeah, and David, and you are making some points there, and I don't blame you, because what I'm saying is that in the absence of information, one is more likely to speculate. And this is real talk here. We're talking about an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, that has been drawn up between the government of Dominica and the Chinese. Yep. We have established diplomatic relations with the Chinese for many years now.
Yes.
And it's not that we come for that talk, but it's obvious that Dominicans have really not seen the benefits with respect to how China has impacted on us economically. Because even now, even the biggest capital project that is going on is our money. It's our money, because they said it's from the proceeds of CBI. But I can attest that even when the Chinese were there, Dominicans had begun to work with respect to agriculture. They did prawn farming, they did papaya, they did a number of other things that the Taiwanese introduced us to, and Dominica was becoming self-sufficient with a number of agricultural produce. So you are correct when you're making the distinction. And that is why we say in the absence of information, one is likely to speculate. This government has not been clean with the people of Dominica, and we have not known what is actually in this memorandum of understanding, and so we are left to speculate. So when you say the things that you say, you are not far from the truth. You are not far from the truth, or it could well be the truth.
Well, I would say that if we are not a colony of the Chinese, I'd like someone to explain to me how come the Chinese do not respect our law? Because if the government is only having an agreement with the Chinese and the Chinese are coming to develop us as just some kind facilitator, why do they pay no attention to the law?
Yes, and going back to that point, people just think it's about a mountain that is being, ravaged, and
it's the watershed.
It's a watershed, exactly. So we come into that.
Once you take out the water, look, if I don't have water to drink, it doesn't matter if I have shoes or I don't have shoes, I'm dead.
That is correct. And so
doesn't matter if I have a TV.
Yeah, as you cut in trees, so the water is depleting. The water source is depleting.
Oh, I don't mean that. No, but it's much worse than that. It's much worse than that. They're going down. They're going down to get the volcanic core, which is where they will be able to extract the dense minerals. So when you're doing that and all of our water source and river is coming through that volcanic stone, you are simultaneously killing the watershed. So this is not about erosion or deforestation.
No.
This is something much more profound. And you could look at Guinea-Bissau and other places that have been mined and see exactly the ecocide and devastation, the crater that is left. We see this in Africa from copper mining, right? So, again...
And David, I was wondering if it's not a clandestine operation as well, because, it's interesting that they say the area is stony, but you have to go right inside to get stones. Why is it that you have to go that far to get stones?
Well, of course, right. And they also say that, for example, 90% of the runway is finished. So why would you still be opening up a mine that's going to take years of excavation for only 10% left of your runway?
That is correct.
I would like to introduce a few other variables in this.
Yes.
Oh wait, look at the video. So anyway,
the video doesn't have the audio, so you could speak while it's going.
Okay, but you can see the vast expanse, and I would recommend to people that as this is going, to make the comparison of how small those excavators look next to the area of devastation, because these were hills that are now valleys, because they've been cut all the way out. So, the whole world worries about when China is going to take Taiwan. China can't take Taiwan until it has military leverage against America, because America has military bases in South Korea and Japan to protect Taiwan. So I hear a lot of talk about airport, but think about it from the Chinese point of view. Why do they want to have a runway in a 7-minute hypersonic missile flight from Washington, D.C. here? Again, we are asking the wrong questions. We're arguing about whether these people are coming to help without ever asking what do they want. Yet we know there's no free money. My brother, if I came to you and said, I'm giving you $1,000 for nothing, wouldn't you be suspicious?
Of course.
Wouldn't you wonder what con am I running? What kind of crazy kunu-munu con I trying to run on you? Am I taking you for a fool? There's no free money. But yet somehow we believe that a country is going to come and spend billions of dollars on us out of their good heart. That's crazy. There's no free money. Look at this. Look at the
it is interesting. Let us be real about it. I mean, what I'm seeing there, it is not that you're coming for stones to just go, because I think all that little infrastructure there.
That's Deux Branches where he's showing right now.
Yes. I'm seeing all that. But these things which have been installed there raises my suspicion.
Yeah, but exactly.
But exactly. Stones you come for, it's just about a car. You should not just have excavators and trucks going in and out. That's all you should have.
Well,
that looks like sifting stuff there. I mean,
this looks like water has to go there, and you have a certain level of filtration. You have to have water.
But that's to deal with the byproduct. That's not to deal with the mineral. We don't have a high enough level of electricity to run a smelter to extract copper and rare earth minerals. But to get down to that volcanic level is going to be about 2,500 feet of excavation. So what do you do with all the materials, the byproduct, just like the husk of the kako? What do you do with that? Well, you crush it. And that's what we're seeing there in Deux Branches, and that's what's running in Crapo Hall. But
and you notice we are not dealing with the technical aspect of it, because the point is the experts have already spoken about it. You had Ms. Janelle Brisbane and the other experts talking about
Gary Augustin,
talking about the technical aspect, the degradation part, the environmental impact assessment, and so on, on what it is. We know about the technical part, we that for the expert, but just common sense, just what we are seeing. Can somebody tell me what is really going on there? Something is going on we don't know about, Doc.
But
something is going on there.
But most of it is, look, I believe that if somebody lied to me 3 times, maybe the first time they got nervous, maybe the second time they were worried, the third time they're a freaking liar. There's no more excuses. There's no nothing. So if you're lying for 20 some years, I'm not going to listen to the next lie. I'm not going to entertain the next false narrative. That's the distraction. That's what keeps us busy arguing between each other instead of stopping them from destroying us. Remember, they're just playing for time. Once they have hard runways, then the Chinese can stop any uprising on the island with their own forces.
But Doc, let's move on from that, though. David, let's get it now. In terms of
I wanted to read something there, because as I'm looking at this image,
right,
what strikes me is the extensiveness of this operation, because when you drive past, as you can see, when you're driving past, you don't see that vast expanse.
No, you don't see that.
So it looks like it's just this little area of the mountain, but they've done extensive mining. And David was telling me when I spoke to him some time ago that this goes on practically 24/7, 7 days a week.
7 days a week, from 7 in the morning to 9 at night, generally.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, my house is cracked up from the dynamite, a lot of which happens in the night.
Again, they have to compensate you for that. But David, you have witnessed the strength of Hurricane Maria, Category 5 hurricane. And you saw the level of devastation we have had. And even when people were passing, they saw the devastation, and some persons felt that we would not have recovered that soon. Although in all respects that with the vegetation has come back and the trees have grown, the vines have come back. But we know that there are a lot of shrubs and there are a lot of trees that have died. What is the estimated time for recovery for that kind of operation? That is a man-made disaster.
Well, that's why we call it ecocide. I mean, look, a hurricane is not really a disaster. It cleans the forest. It's terrible for us. But humans create disasters that are irreversible. So just like nobody can create a river, nobody, this is God's work. So, after Maria, like you had mentioned earlier, I think maybe it was before we went live, but just like after a hurricane, when the trees the next season bear better than before because they're making up for the damage and impact they've had, the forest has a way of renewing itself under normal environmental issues. But when you excavate at this level, when you quarry and mine at this level, that's irreversible. Or if it's not irreversible, we're talking about thousands of years for the earth to remake itself, but way beyond our ability to live through.
Yes, and somebody's saying there, and somebody's making a point that we already have existing what they call quarries around the island. We have in Collio, we have also lower down Collio, we have two in Collio, we have Paris and them doing something at West Point there in Massac, and then you have in Point Michel that operations. What I'm saying is that yes, logistically speaking, with respect to transportation, it may have caused it would have cost them more with respect to the cost of transportation. But if you already have these existing quarries, why wouldn't it have interest you to take these stones from there?
Yes.
We have some good solid stones. So
Yeah,
every
but
stone you're really looking for, why is it that you cannot get the stones from
but
there?
then also, David, just before you respond, and you can respond to both of us. I mean, when you look at the quarry in Collioure or in Solomon Wooled in Point Michel, when you look at it, you see the physical stones on the surface. But in the video that we're looking at, this aerial view, what you're seeing is really red dirt and very little stones. So where exactly are these stones coming from?
Again, they're trying to get to the volcanic core because all magma is a complete collection of all minerals, right, from the Earth's core. So that dried volcanic stone is always mineral rich. Depending on where, it could have different concentrations of different, whether copper here or lithium there, whatever. But it's, multi-spectrum mineral rich. And it's not the dirt or surface stones they want at all. They're trying to get to the volcanic level, the hardened volcanic stone, to be able to strip mine. Look, the empires of the world right now, that's what they're looking for. Whether it's, America, Europe, Russia, China, all of them are trying to get the last of the world's resources for technology. And they're willing to destroy our watershed because they're not dependent on our water. We are. And they don't care about us.
Yes, because look, someone is saying there, we must also consider the two major rivers being contaminated with 500 times the level of contaminants recommended, or let me get it right, 500 times the level of contaminants recommended by the World Health Organization. And that's for government water testing in November. And so that is a concern as well, because people use the river downstream and so. And this, to me, will have impact the flora and fauna. And later, you might well be getting dead fish in the river.
My brother, they wiped out Crapper Hall. Crapper Hall used to have so much crayfish and eel and dome and mullet and, VO, everything. Now, there is VO, and they are shells contaminated. And depending on the time, the water can be oily, the water can be all kinds of different contaminants. And when, Crapper Hall, St. Mary, used to be the second cleanest water in the country. Now it's undrinkable, and when I bathe, I get sores on my skin. So this is something that is real. This is actual. And because all of our rivers, whether you're talking Layo, whether you're talking Concord, Paguac, St. Mary, Uvule, and how many water sources, all of them are coming through that volcanic stone.
Yes, somebody again is another comment. The people who keep comparing the destruction of Maria to what's happening at Deux Branches are either ignorant or wicked. Maria did not excavate the landscape to remove the ground where the trees are rooted. Trees may have fallen, branches broken, but the trees were still rooted, hence the ability to regrowth. And that's what we talk about is a man-made disaster. Although we have all witnessed Hurricane Maria, we have never seen the kind of devastation as we see now. And that to me is problem, because right now the topsoil is gone, the subsoil is gone, and I have doubts that you're going to get regrowth that very quick, because unless if you will have to dump back some soil there, because it's going to take some time, and we are going to be left with that big crater. You agree, David?
And that's without talking about acid. That's also without talking about the acid that is released and is left over after.
That's correct.
Right? Look at the acid pools in Jamaica after the bauxite extraction and what that did to Upper St. Anne and certain areas. It's devastation. I just want to make one little addition. Forgive me. But you know how, like, in most places you have disaster management. We have that in name, right? So in normal times you plan for when a disaster comes. But what the Chinese are doing is management disaster, which is what we are doing is bringing a disaster, right? What they are doing is ecocide. Sorry. What they are doing is ecocide, right?
Yes.
And there is no way to reverse that. The only thing we can do is stop it at where it is now before it gets so deep that we start creating acid pools and other problems that are really god-awful.
Yes, it's very sad, and Doc, what I'm seeing, and you see, again, they thought that we're not able to see what is happening inside because it's all hidden. Because when you pass, the bush area, you see one two little things, but really they are in there digging and digging and digging. And I think the government must come really clean to it. I mean, it's really raising suspicions, with respect to how people think of what is going on. We are not against the development, but it's not about development at any cost. Bearing in mind that Dominica is branded the nature island. The World Heritage Site we have in Dominica that was given by UNESCO, I think, named Dominica one of the World Heritage Site. And I don't know what are the implications if we continue to do this, put wounds in nature, if at all the title can be withdrawn. And I don't know if at all they have to do periodic evaluation to see if we can sustain the title. So I'm very worried about where we're taking Dominica.
Yeah, me too.
Doc?
Yes, absolutely. So it is very concerning. I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the extent of the destruction, and apparently not only that. I mean, if you're getting some stones for a runway, you would think that would be just a very temporary type of movement, right?
That's right.
Because it's probably 10,000 feet of asphalt that you're gonna have to put down, or stones you have to put down. But when you look at the kind of structures that are going on there, it looks like they're preparing to be there for 50 years.
Absolutely.
I mean, that cannot be anything of a temporary nature.
You don't invest that much money in something that's temporary.
Temporary, exactly. I mean, these are some serious heavy duty types of equipment that we're seeing there. Yeah. And it is nothing even compared to where we have the other quarries that's already on site in Dominica and already being developed. So something does not sit right with all of this. And in fact, in our letter that we wrote to the government demanding a halt to the mining, we suggested that this is the area that has been identified as having these very large quantities of copper, and we were thinking aloud whether or not that is in fact the case, that this has nothing to do necessarily with the airport, but everything to do with getting nearing rare earth material as well as copper.
Yeah.
And that is, but the extent of that destruction, I mean, look at this. This is mind-boggling. And then you wonder about the potential for landslides, for all of that material coming into the river. And once the river dies, it takes over 100 years to rebuild itself.
Yes,
again,
point. Go
what
ahead.
do the Chinese want? I would like to hear from our government. What do the Chinese get out of this? What do they want? The argument is always presented as if somehow we're against development because we want to protect creation. The real question is, what do the Chinese get out of this? What are they seeking? None of us with an adult head believes they're doing this just out of good heart. Okay? That's not... People who do things out of good heart like the people they're doing it for. The Chinese won't even watch us in our face. They won't even speak to us. They look at us like and treat us like we're inferior. When the Taiwanese were here, they were like brothers. They walked with us, worked with us, stood with us. A man who doesn't... If a man comes into my home and will never look at me or my children in their face, he's not there out of love. He wants something that's in my home.
Yeah, and then let me see. We are having some more comments here. Okay, somebody saying there mercury, arsenic, cadmium levels are through the roof in Pegua and Concord.
Yes,
tributaries are also connected. We are talking water poisoning for years to come, intolerable. We have existing quarries for stone today, and just to support this point, and people understand the impact this is having on the ecosystem with respect to what they call reclamation challenges, because you now do that destruction, but is the repairing time of it, is recuperation. Knowing that one, Dominica is a little disadvantage with that kind of operation in that we already are rugged terrain. The topography is such that it is slopey, and that you know what is going to happen when you have torrential pause. And so we already see the land is already exposed to that kind of movement of soil. And as you said, David, just soil erosion is just one factor, but as you say, it's just a big factor as well, because already
Of course.
see the expanse of excavation that has already taken place. See the expose of the soil that has already taken place. This is a recipe for what you call things to come. And there's no doubt that what we saw or what we are seeing there is evidence of a disaster, an impending disaster after they have done all of this. Do you agree or you disagree?
No, I agree. I mean, I am 100% aware that the Chinese will work exactly to their desires and needs with no consideration of the effects on us as a people and on the creation that we depend on. I have no doubt in my mind that that is not one of their considerations. They are doing this for their own agenda, for their own national needs. It was interesting that when the Chinese ambassador made the video directly to us, the Dominican people, after 20 years of never speaking directly to us, that he kept talking about Chinese growth rate and how fast China's GDP was growing and all of this. That shows who he's representing. He's not representing our growth. He's not representing our development. The Chinese are here for their own GDP. The Chinese are here for their own political and national economic agenda. They're not here for ours. I would like, again, to be told, what do the Chinese get out of the deal? Okay, so the memorandum of understanding was kept secret, most likely because it has a security clause. Because back when we were independent farmers, we would have never accepted a security clause, which says that if their investment is threatened, they can use their own security forces to protect it or such, which of course they would put into that because they're not going to give billions of dollars without a security clause. But back then, we were independent farmers. We were self-determined, filled with dignity. Every fisherman, every farmer felt like a king. And we would have not accepted that any other country could impose that on us. So they kept it secret. But
Yes.
we should have no illusions that if you're hiding something, it means you know what you're doing is wrong. My grandfather said to me when I was little, if you're keeping secrets, then you know what you're knowing is wrong. If you're hiding it, it's your conscience that is guilty. So if
That is
after
correct.
20 some years they cannot be open and transparent, then we should not wonder if there's a secret. We should not wonder if they're being nefarious. We should know that.
Right. And
Simply.
so we have a former minister with us joining, he's joined the program, and he's actually saying this. There is no doubt that the area has minerals. The United Workers' Party passed the Mining Act to regulate mining in the area. The proposal was rejected after local environmental groups protested. That is what it was like before. People actually protested, and it's the same Labour Party people who protested. Today you have Dominicans protesting against that very same thing which they did in the past. They're actually saying that people are against development. Well, I see somebody saying that
this is real. This is real leadership. That's what I was talking about very early on.
Yeah.
What role is there for government? Government is supposed to have stepped in, and the United Workers' Party responsibly decided against mining in this area because of the huge environmental impact. In other words, the cost simply would not support whatever gains we could have had from those minerals. And I don't think anything has changed after 30 years.
No, nothing has changed. And what is interesting about this program is that, I cannot understand how the government could have gotten confused. Where you allow the project to go forward without supervision, and then now you realize that you have encroached in the Central Forest Reserve by already digging about 1 acre. We heard that, by the way. We heard that from Mr. Gregor, who said that the only thing so far we've learned is that we have been in about 1 acre or so into the forest reserve. How could you have been undertaking a project of such magnitude and you do not have a buffer zone? You have not established buffer zones to know exactly that you have enough space, right? You have buffered the Central Forest Reserve, so that means it should be untouched. And you've got, by the way, as David rightly said, the project was stopped because it seems to me that they had considered about certain things. Why that clandestine operation? What is happening at Deux Branches? what is happening at Crapo Hall. Why do we do that? And you see, the strategy there is to use the international airport as a face to continue to have destruction into the forest, Central Forest Reserve. So right away now, they're trying to tie it up with the airport as if people are against the airport. We are not against the airport. We are saying Dominica has enough stones, and we know there are other areas that will give us the stones that we want. But gentlemen, we are actually running out of time. But let me just see if I can take some of the other calls. What will Dr. Fontaine do when he's in power?
Well, so it's possible the person asking now missed the first part of the program, but I was very clear that the United Workers Party government under my leadership would not allow that kind of destruction of our environment. I believe that we need to preserve what is uniquely ours, and we cannot, in the name of progress or development, seek to destroy the very thing that this country is so blessed with, which is our water and our natural beauty. And this mark, and that's what it is. When you look at this, it's a scar, it's a mark, it's almost like a blow inflicted on the sanctity of our environment. I mean, it is very disturbing to me to see this, and the more I see of it, is the more revolting it becomes, because you're wondering at what cost. Why should and people, one guy tell me, oh, you guys are tree huggers and so on. I'm saying, no, we have to preserve. And one person even told me, but what if we give up a mountain? We have so many mountains. What if we give one up for the international airport? And I'm saying that is not how you look at it. You just look at something that is so wrong, and we, like I've said repeatedly, I firmly believe that the material for this airport can be found elsewhere in Dominica, especially the other quarries that we have. And it should not be a matter of cost. It should be, all of that should have been factored into whatever costings that you're going to do for the airport. And I would like to think that the airport was costed before we went into it, And so the idea that we have to rely on or depend on this particular area is certainly not right. And the United Workers Party government will cease and immediately halt every single activity of that kind in the very central reserve of Dominica. We have to preserve. We cannot be violating our own laws in the country, or that seeks to preserve what we have for future generations. It's not going to happen on with the leadership.
Very good. Stop out on Crapo Hall long time.
Yes.
I mean,
we are coming to end.
Nobody should be above the Constitution.
Yes,
nobody should be above the process which makes a country sovereign. No individual is sovereign in the country. The Constitution guarantees sovereignty of a nation, that everybody is below the Constitution, not a man putting himself above it, and certainly not a foreign power operating above the Constitution. So my question would be, if Dr. Fountain is Prime Minister, would he be willing to actually reassert sovereignty for us and regain sovereignty, as now it seems we do not have? Because the Chinese obviously are operating as if they are above the Constitution.
But that's the rule of government. In fact, that's what I said at the very beginning. The government is supposed to be between whatever foreign interests and the people. And its first responsibility is to protect the rights and the integrity of its people. And that is what we will do.
Well, somebody's saying there, where were the UWP, or where was the UW going to get source the stones for the airport, since they already had a plan and did an EIA? Let me tell you, caller, that's a very interesting question. Remember, the site they had before, the site that was chosen before, and the United Workers paid for the land, acquired the land, paid for the land. Remember, there was another question about stones. The point is, if at all stones were needed then we'd have had to find an alternative site, not what the Labour Party is doing there. And for some of you,
exactly. And I mean, stones, really what you need is a runway, right?
It's a runway.
I believe the question of stones came into this particular site because of the water and so that they tried.
Oh, yes, exactly.
But at the same time, at what cost? I think that's too much of a high cost to pay, quite frankly.
So the person that I see a guy bashing us there, I will not read it thing, but he's saying like we are hypocrite and we're talking as if we don't want development. I want to ask that caller or the person that in there. If you have a piece of land and you're bonding with somebody, I can bet you, sir, you would have had your boundaries established. And if that person was to encroach on your land, maybe you take a cutlass. I'm not saying that is the option. Maybe they, because just the encroachment alone would bother you, not mining. So don't come and tell us about a big thing like mining, because we're too selfish sometimes. We listen to a program and we just believe as people criticize it. If you believe that we are selfish and we do not want development, if you own a piece of land, allow somebody to cross your boundary indiscriminately, and let me see your reaction. But gentlemen, we are out of time already. Let me thank everybody who participated. Let me thank all who text. I will give you all an opportunity for your closing remarks. I will go with you, David, and then Dr. Thomson will put on the curtain on the program. Thank you.
Yeah, I thank you very much for the conversation, for the reasoning. For me, I think it boils down to something very simple, which is that no matter what the project, it has to follow existing law. No matter what the entity, whether it be individual, institutional, governmental, or NGO, it needs to follow the law. The idea of trying to post facto justify an action that has been done without any legal process is not reasonable. People saying that we are against development because we ask the government to follow its own laws is like saying that you get hit by a car and you should not complain because the car was on its way to somewhere and you were in the way of the car. Well, if you are in your own home and a car drives through your home, you're the victim of the car. We are asking that the government, Chinese, or any entity follow the law. This has nothing to do with whether you want development or don't want development. It's what we want to protect is both the sovereignty of the Constitution and the creation that provides us with all the blessings to survive. We should be able to develop without destroying ourselves, or the law, or the Constitution. It's that simple. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dave.
Yes, thank you very much, David. It's great that you're able to be with us tonight to kind of help shed additional light on this very disturbing situation going on in the Deux Branches area. Our hope is that the government will continue or will be on the side of the people and the Constitution, and will ultimately respect the Constitution of the land. That is what it's called for. It's a respect for the Central Forest Reserve. It's a respect for the uniqueness of Dominica and of nature, and in a way, being thankful for what we have, because if you destroy it, then it's gone forever. And we should not, in the interest, or we should not, in the name of development, be imposing so much pain on a country that is supposed to be the nature of the world.
Certainly.
Yes, and the best way to end, again, repeat, Mr. Carbon, who was the minister at the time as agriculture, knew what was happening. He said the site selected by the law did not require all that filling material. Labor side is sitting on a water table. So, gentlemen, let me thank you. Dave, let me thank you for your presence here tonight. You are a source of enlightenment to everything that is happening around you. You've been an environmental defender. There's no doubt that you have some unsettled business with the government. It cannot be, as a stakeholder, you are left to lament and languish while project is going on and stakeholders are not properly fulfilled with respect to how the process is supposed to go. Dr. Fontaine, let me just thank you again for your time, and let us say that let us continue to fight for Dominica. And I hope, Dave, that the minister, the President Paul Rep for Marigot will extend an apology for saying that all the landowners have agreed and have given up their lands. So I don't know where you get that from. You have to correct it. So, Doc, let me thank you. Let me thank Dave. And to all those who contributed, we say good night until next time, till next Monday. We say this has been Real Talk. We'll bring you another edition, hopefully next week, Monday, God's willing. And this time we say so long, have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.